Okay, so we have 5 minutes still?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to go fill the dog's water bowl.
That's great. Rick, how's the dog?
Dogs are good. They're happy now. Much happier. It's pretty warm up here today. I think it got to about 65, so...
Yeah, I was just checking my phone. It said 70 here, so... 69 now.
Yeah, I was there. I was there this morning. I woke up in the Mid-Ohio Valley and came back here. And then now, after we're done with this, I'll go back to Morgantown. But it was a pretty nice day to drive.
Temperature's way overdue.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's supposed to get cold again this week, though.
Oh, don't say that.
Well, cold. Yeah, I think it's happening.
Yeah, it's only almost May, you know. So,
hey, at least I haven't had to mow yet.
Me either. I've been to the Carolina Rebellion where it's been 95, and I've been there when it's been 45 and snowing. So at night, it's a pretty weird time of year, and that's in like 2 weeks, and I haven't even looked yet because there's no reason to look. It could say 45 and be 90 or vice versa. So
I think it was 2015. Rock on the Range was colder and shit, and raining and.
Yeah, that's another thing too. I mean, I've been to all of those, and I mean, it has been absolutely melting hot, and it's also been that we've had to take friends from out of town to different stores to get geared up for winter. It's really a weird thing.
it was 30-some at the Masters when I was down there.
Really?
Yeah. It was like 38, 36. And then the morning, you know.
I've never made it to the Masters. I've always wanted to go.
It's pretty nice.
I bet.
From the Man Cave Studios in South Parkersburg, West Virginia. Live and uncensored.
Yeah, well, fuck you.
This is Roberts Report with your host, Craig Roberts.
And I've been thinking that maybe it's time to let them know that we're alive. Everybody, lift your hands to the sky. If you feel it, let them know the feeling will survive. Can you hear me?
Man, I love that song. Great job, Shallow-Side. Keep putting them out. Welcome, everybody, to Roberts Report. I am Craig Roberts, of course. We are missing our co-host tonight, Mr. Nate Hess. He's in Columbus doing something. I believe that he is doing sound for a band or something rather.
How dare he do other things?
Yeah. He wanted to Skype in on us, but we just couldn't make it happen this evening. So, Nate, if you're watching, we miss you. We'll catch you there next week. We do have Larry Perimeter.
Who's that guy?
In house tonight. Larry Oakey, or whatever other AKAs that you have. And, of course, we have back this week for a full dose. I don't know if the Roberts Report channel will be able to handle it or not, but we were going to have a full dose of Big Rick this week. And welcome, Big Rick.
That's all you need. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. And we were going to notice that we don't have Ryan Curry on here. Ryan Curry is on his way with the I think he calls the Red Snappers, on his way to Charleston to see the Blackstone Cherry Boys there this evening.
Yeah, he asked me to change his name for the protection of all involved. But he's headed down to see a Government Mule and Blackstone Cherry are playing together tonight in Charleston, and that's where he's going.
What a great show!
I probably can tell you. I can tell you enough stories for both of us. Trust me.
I'm sure you can. Went to a fantastic show in Cleveland, Ohio last night. Never been to this venue before. We went to see it was Escape the Fate, Nothing More, and Papa Roach. My God, what a show. I tell you what, the Nothing More, that was the second time we saw them. The first time Johnny had the flu, and couldn't tell it. We didn't know till afterwards that he was sick. He has that much energy, so you can imagine what the show was like when he was not sick. And,
oh yeah, they're great. Did you go to the Argonne Theater?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
I highly recommend that if you do go there, that you pay the extra $120 and get the little box seats on the side, because it was well worth it. Let's just put it that way. And of course,
yeah, it's a good spot.
And of course, Jacoby Shaddix, don't have to say anything else other than that. That the dude is completely insane and completely clean now, from what I understand. And
high on life.
Yeah, and the dude just doesn't stop. I don't know how his band keeps up with him, to be honest with you. It was hard for us too. I remember him being at the I don't know which Bear Fest it was, but it was one of the biggest ones that you had, Rick. 2?
It was the second one. Yeah.
Rock
boy,
Allegiance.
Trust me, if Ryan Curry was on the air with us tonight, he probably would have twitched out of existence thinking about that. And that was a 72-hour day, if that's even possible. I don't think we slept for like 3 days leading up to it, and even into the wee hours the next day. Hell, Craig, I think you were there even when we were still busting on that stage at the 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. That was a Tuesday night. I remember that. My day started on Monday morning and it ended sometime on Wednesday.
Yeah, I had to be at work at 7 the next morning, and I took. There's a lot more story. The evening wasn't over once I left there, and I don't know if you heard the rest of the story or not. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was helping tear down the stage and stuff there too. And I offered to take him home. He was drunk, no problem. I'd do that. Well, when we got back down to the gate that we came in on, it was locked. So I thought, okay, no problem. I've climbed a chain link fence before, so off we go. So we're climbing it. First, we looked for a place under it. We couldn't find it, so we decided to climb over it. And the guy that I was taking home, he decided to climb where the gate was, lost his balance, fell from the top of the fence, and broke his collarbone.
Oh my God! No, I never heard that story.
I wish I knew what the guy's name was, because it's real cool. Because it was a joke afterwards. He was, a matter of fact, he did a lot of your shows, helped with security and stuff. But I ended up, instead of taking him home, ended up going to the emergency room instead and dropping him off there. There was blood all over the inside of my minivan, and but it was a rock and roll show.
Do that to you.
Yeah.
Oh man, I've got so many Mid Ohio Valley rock and roll stories that my God, I don't even know if the statute of limitations is up to tell some of them. Especially from that thing was wow. That thing has such an incredible story behind it.
Good place to start. Let's go ahead and start with that one.
How
did it come together? Let's start there.
It's still not together. Bearfest was a really, and it remains to be one of the best and worst things that I ever did. Bearfest was started long before I came to the Mid Ohio Valley in 2005. In fact, I think they had 3 of them that were all cover bands festivals that they did near the mall. And it was a grocery store parking lot, but I was there later than the grocery store was even open. So I don't remember what grocery store it was. I think now it's a doctor's offices and a pharmacy and such over there. So they had three of those up until I think 2001. So when I got there, people had talked about Bearfest. I knew nothing about it. I wasn't there. And so after a couple of years of being there and getting comfortable, we started. I started to ask questions about it to my bosses back then, and just said, "Hey, what is this thing, and why does everybody want this back so badly?" And after finding out more about it, I was like, "Okay, well that's pretty cool," and it kind of went to the back burner. But it was always the thing people asked about: when is this coming back? And I guess really that was the only form of actual rock and roll entertainment that the Mid Ohio Valley had for the years previous. But of course you have to, you have to crawl before you can walk. And after a couple of years of trying to develop how could we get rock and roll to come to Parkersburg, it all kind of came together. I met a guy named J.R. Rubel, who worked he was the president of the Eagles Club at the time. Brian, who ultimately the history of this business is about. We met through JR, and I walked into the Eagles Club for the first time, and they had this great stage in this big room and that enormous bar. And I was really looking at the time for a place to host some of the comedians from the Bob and Tom show. They always did a comedy tour. 5-6 of them would go places. And so obviously Bob and Tom was a pretty successful product for us back in the day. And it was like, okay, well, that we could probably benefit from having this. We just don't have a place big enough to put it. And I walked in that room for the first time at the Eagles Club, and I said, why the hell don't you guys have rock bands in here? And JR said, well, we have bands all the time, but it was local stuff. But I said, you can do a lot more with this, and that's kind of where it started. So we the first show that we booked there actually wasn't the first show that we played in that room. The first show we booked was Blackstone Cherry, and it was for a Wednesday night. I believe that was a Wednesday night in June. And boy, you guys will have to help me with this if you remember.
And then what's funny, I didn't even know at that point. Blackstone Cherry wasn't really. I didn't know them that well. I mean, I knew they were on the radio, and I mean, look where they are now. But
interesting. But right now they're in Charleston.
yeah.
And so, it was, we looked at what could possibly work. And the year before, in December, we had booked Pop Evil to play Party Like a Rock Star, which you guys remember was a invite-only thing. It was the first time that the Bear had ever had a national act like that come and play Party Like a Rock Star, even though that was like the, 10th one, 9th one, something like that. And it wasn't a slight to anybody local. It was just like, let's try to get to the next level and see if we could get a band in here that has national airplay. And so we booked Pop Evil. That Party Like a Rock Star kind of set a lot of this in motion for the Bear at the time. And so after I saw that room and I talked to JR and I said, let's put a show in here. And the Eagles Club at the time, I mean, even if Brian was on here, I think he'd have no problem telling you it was financially hurting. I mean, fraternal orders tend to have older members. They weren't drawing in a lot of new people. And so we thought this might be a way. And they, they said, here's a budget. I mean, the list of bands they gave me that they wanted had everybody from, Theory of a Dead Man to Ozzy. And I was like, well, you guys got to be realistic about this. We're not going to be able to put, somebody like Ozzy or Metallica inside the Parkersburg Eagles Club. But once everybody kind of got the understanding of what we could do with it, they gave me the go ahead and I ended up booking Blackstone Cherry. But there was a club, I want to say it was called the Inferno, but you guys will have to remember. Yep. I've got a lot of cross wires in my head from all these stories, but I think it was them that tried to book Pop Evil, and we were trying to do something here, and we had just booked Pop Evil 4 months before they played Party Like a Rock Star, and the guys from Pop Evil called me and they said, is this a you thing? And I said, no, it's not. I don't even know what you're talking about. And so they were like, well, we don't want to play there unless you're involved, because Party Like a Rock Star went so well. Those guys had jobs at the Grand Rapids Mall still when we booked them for the first time. So, they were up and coming, and they realized they had radio support, which matters for every band, that you ever talk to, finding a way to get their stuff played on the radio. And so I said, well, I don't know anything really about this club, but I have another place. If you really want to come back to town, I've got another place we could put you. And so I went ahead and spent the Eagles Club money without them knowing. And I called JR and I said, there's another band going to play there before Blackstone Cherry does. And he's like, well, what are you talking about? And I said, you're just going to have to trust me. And we sold, I'd say somewhere in the neighborhood, 700 or 800 tickets for Pop Evil. At the time, that was the biggest show they had ever played outside of being in Michigan, where they're from. And that's kind of how that started. The show started to roll, and we were getting things. And then all of a sudden, bands started coming to us. JR ended up moving to Texas. Brian took his position kind of in the Eagles Club as the president, and things were rolling. So I went back to my boss and I said, what about Bearfest? I said, everybody seems to want this thing. And I said, we don't have to do cover bands. We can do bands that we play. And quite honestly, everybody thought it was nuts. They were like, this isn't going to work. That many people won't come to one show. You can't get that many people to park. How are you supposed to put this down in the ball fields at the Eagles Club? And I said, if you just let me fail, if I fail, then get rid of me. If I don't fail, then everybody's happy. And so we put that first one down at the Eagles Club in the ball fields. And to my knowledge, about 2,000 people came, 1,500 people came. Everybody made money, and that was what we were looking for. And the following year, of course, that venue was closed. We closed it out with cedar. They put holes in the walls. We ripped out the bar. There was a bomb threat, all that, all that fun stuff. And then it was done. It was like, well, shit, we started this really cool thing that just has to end because we didn't have anywhere to put it. The Eagles Club paid for the shows at the time. We never made $1 from any of it. Brian nor I did. And it was like, well, it's done, and that sucks. And I got a call from a guy who I still know, and he said, we're trying to figure out whether to put this Rock Allegiance tour. We're trying to take it to markets that don't get tours. So we'd rather not put it in Pittsburgh. If you have the opportunity to house it, we would rather put it in West Virginia. And at the time, X-Fest was starting to die in Huntington, or maybe had died. So there weren't any rock festivals in West Virginia. And I went to Brian and I said, this is really a crazy, crazy idea. It's more money than any show probably has ever cost to put at anywhere in town. And I want to use that racetrack. And he was like, yeah, they've done shows. I think Alabama played there or something like that. And there's traffic getting in and out. And, it's on a Tuesday. It had a million things against it that people told me not to do. They just said, don't do it. And I don't know what made us actually do it. But, I agreed, basically knowing that not only would I be fired, I'd probably be sued if it didn't work, because I sure as hell didn't have my half or quarter, I guess. I don't know that Brian necessarily did or didn't. And we ended up partnering with someone out of Chicago who put in the other half. That's what he does. He just invests money into concerts all around the country. So we teamed up with this guy, and honestly, it was a total disaster from the start to finish. Contract issues, this and that. And the day before, he pulled up in an RV with 9 of his guys and tried to take over the festival. And, we were selling tickets. That wasn't really an issue. The tickets were selling, but all the contracts had certain things that needed to be met that we never saw any contracts. So the day they showed up, we had no idea what was needed other than the stage, light, and sounds, which we had. So long story short, it was probably the worst decision I've ever made in my life to do something that big. I think Brian still has PTSD from that day, and probably rightfully so. But what it did do was I think it made the Mid-Ohio Valley believe that it was an honest-to-God rock and roll stop. People wanted this, and they showed up, and a lot of people from around the state showed up. Obviously, a lot of people from Ohio showed up, and that was a Tuesday. I mean, had that thing been on a Saturday, I think we probably hit about 5,000 on a Tuesday. On a Saturday night, you never know. It could have been 7,500 to 10,000, and at that point, we knew that starting an actual business called Rocks Off Entertainment and bringing concerts to town was something that we could do for financial gain. We could do at the benefit of people that live there that can't necessarily drive to Columbus and see a show, or drive to Pittsburgh and see a show. And as long as it was the same price, or sometimes, and a lot of times better. I mean, I'll be honest with you. We could have taken probably more money and more profit out of doing those shows. But when you can go see a band like Pop Evil or Blackstone Cherry for $15, I mean, we honestly left a lot of money on the table just because it almost felt sort of like a public service in a way. So we brought in entertainment.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that you mentioned Pop Evil a lot of times there. Back in 2006, X-Fest was the first time I saw them, and they were an opening band. Actually, it was the year that Avenged Sevenfold was their headliner down there. And it was just kind of funny because Pop Evil was, you could tell they were still just trying to get things together. And I was more impressed at that point in time. Egypt Central was also on the bill. I was more impressed with Egypt Central than I was with Pop Evil at the time, and now look at them. I mean, it's just unbelievable how the circle comes back around.
Egypt Central is an interesting story. Egypt Central had been around a long time, probably before you ever saw them. They actually got kicked out of the Johnstown War Memorial, which is a funny story too. But those guys had been around for quite a while. And of course, 2 of the members of that band are now Devour the Day. The lead singer of Egypt Central, John Falls, is now he is a record producer. He lives in Tennessee and does his thing. I still talk to him every once in a while. I manage his bands. But Devour of the Day probably had more commercial success in their 2 or 3 albums than Egypt Central did in all their grinding out. And I would love to see Egypt Central. I think I think everybody's kind of back on a we're cool enough basis. I don't know that you'll ever see them perform together again, but they were another band that we had. They played, I think, with Otherwise and Saving Abel maybe at the Fishbone. And, they went out there and killed it. They were a band that people really liked in Parkersburg and in, the Mid-Ohio Valley. And again, another band that we built, we built our business off of people just being able to be accessible to bands like Egypt Central or Pop Evil. And Pop Evil, you're right, Craig, is an incredible story. The first time to Parkersburg, they played on a Saturday night and they went back to work probably Monday morning at the Grand Rapids Mall. And now they are late in the day main stage players at festivals all over the world. We got really lucky. I will say this. Pop Evil, Blackstone Cherry, certainly 2 of the bands that we built our backs of, Boba Flex, of course. We got really lucky that the bands we were investing in back then and probably paying a little bit more than most people would have paid for them, it really served us well later because they became huge bands. They became bands that people would go watch on the main stage at festivals. We had no idea that festivals like Rock on the Range would have 150,000 people at them every summer and they'd be sold out for 3 days at 40 or 50,000 people, and we had no idea that the festival circuit would become a thing where there were, I think they're now like 18 or 19 around the country. We picked good bands, and I'll tell you what, it's total luck. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and go, I saw something special. I saw that I liked the bands that we picked, but you never know. You just never know.
A lot has to do with their fan interactive. They're I mean, you're talking about 2 of the best. If you're a new band and you're coming up and you want to learn something from bands coming up, those are 2 of the most humbled bands that you can find. Some of the most, I should say. It's
true. It's funny you mentioned that. What you're searching for there is fan experience.
Yes.
Last night, for example, we did. I was in the Mid-Ohio Valley last night for Remix Pro Wrestling, which is a thing that I started with Adam Johnson and a couple other guys years ago, and in 2010. And it is every single dollar has gone to help humane organizations. I'm a big dog lover, and so is Adam. He actually runs We Love Pets. That's what he does for a living. So we've got a lot of people involved that really loved animals. And he came into my office back in 2010 and said, I know how to do this, which was the wrestling side of it, but I don't know how to make people come to it. I was a guy that knew how to make people come to things. So we got together and we put this together. And as of last night, I'm not sure what the final total is, but since 2010, we've made $85,000+ for local humane societies and animal charities. So we're pretty proud of that. But one of the things that makes it sell 800 tickets like it did last night, it essentially sold out. We have had more people, but we packed the gym. And what makes that so successful is the fan experience. You can physically touch the wrestlers. You can meet them. You can get autographs. You can get pictures, and then you put it on your social media, and that helps grow your brand. Well, I mean, basically, radio, concerts, wrestling, or anything else that I do is all about branding. I mean, that's actually a job title that you can have. And the fan experience for the concerts back in the days was really that thing. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I see people, and I got to be honest with you, I use one form of social media and I hate it. I don't like Facebook. I never really have, and I don't have any other outlet. I don't Instagram. I have no idea how to hook up Twitter, and I don't want it. and it has nothing to do with being not accessible to fans or to listeners or to anything like that. It's just there's only so many hours of the day you can turn off being who you are publicly if you do something like this. And bands don't have that choice at all. I mean, I get 6-7 hours of sleep a day if I get that many, and I have no interest in looking at Facebook or anything like that when I go to bed at night. That's it. I don't, if my phone doesn't beep, I don't leave it on. But bands don't have that. And part of their over accessibility was part of our success. You could tweet Pop Evil and say, I'm so excited to see you in Parkersburg on Friday. And if they tweeted you back and you pump that, you put it out there on your own Facebook, oh my God, Pop Evil liked my tweet, or, you screenshotted it. Well, really, that helped build the brand of Rock Soft Entertainment in the Mid-Ohio Valley. You could reach out, touch a band, and then when you got to the show, they sold their own merch. So you could get your picture, you could get your CD signed, you could do that types of stuff. And we picked the right bands that wanted to do that. And, Larry, I know you're sitting in there. You're a guy who has tons of experience meeting famous people and popular people. And, one thing that I'll tell you this past Wednesday, I was on Blackstone Cherry's bus. They were driving to Bethlehem, PA for the first night of the Government Mule Tour. And they called me and said, hey, I think we're just going to spend the night in Morgantown, hang out. It's like, sure. So they hid behind the Morgantown Mall in their bus, and I went up and we spent about 4 hours together and listened to the new album, Family Tree. It's out now. Go buy it. Shameless plug. But, I talked to them about one thing that I absolutely hate, and they are 100% against it. But I know a lot. I mean, hell, Craig, you may have done this before. I hate when bands sell meet and greets. When I was a kid, I had a picture of Van Halen, a poster of Van Halen up on my wall. And David Lee Roth was one of these people that, when you're growing up and you live in a small town and you never think in your lifetime that what you see up on that poster is something that you'll see in your real life. You may get to go to a concert or something like that, but you'll never reach out and touch David Lee Roth. And I still to this day have never met David Lee Roth, but I know that you can now buy experiences for people that you want to buy experiences to. If you love Metallica, you can pay to meet Metallica. I hate that. I know why bands do it. I know bands like Gemini Syndrome, who I really like, do stuff like that. And it's to put gas in the tank to go to the next city. I get it, but I don't like it. and I think when you get to go to a concert, if the band wants to sell you a $25 T-shirt and a $20 album, and you're at the Sixpence or you're at the Adelphia, I think you earn that high five the band, picture with the band experience. I really do. And when it costs you $75 to get a fan experience on the bus, it's like, oh, get a bus experience. Well, buses stink.
And that's cheap. By the way, $75 is cheap.
And I really don't know what people charge. I know to meet Metallica. Now, there is that certain thrill about meeting Metallica. There's another band I've never met in my life. I'm hoping in October I get my chance to do that, and it looks like it could happen. But I can tell you this, when I got the ticket links, and I usually, if there's tickets that I want to buy to a show, I get a link in advance to buy them and get to sit where I want. If I'm so inclined to buy tickets. I had 2 tickets in the 7th row, queued up, meet and greet, whole 9 yards. It was $800, and I went, no, I don't. I just, as much as I want to meet Metallica, as much as I love Metallica, I would rather feed that machine.
I would rather it be a lottery system or something or other. Get at least put your name in and choose randomly. When you got like you mentioned, $800 for a meet and greet with Metallica, man, the guy's got enough money. They don't need gas in their tank to go to the next.
Yeah, it's situational.
Yeah,
I think it's just
situational.
greed, is what I think it is.
With bands like that, and maybe it is, Larry. And Larry, you're the guy. I mean, if I wanted an autograph so badly that I could not obtain on my own, I call Larry. He's the guy that could find just about anything for you in the autograph world. But he knows damn well that Emmett Smith is $150 handshake, photograph, and autograph. And now that's how guys like that continue to make their money. And I get that. And I get the world of autographs is not free. And it's something that people aren't necessarily just meeting Emmett Smith by chance or, meeting Gene Simmons by chance and getting an autograph and cherishing it and putting it up on their wall and framing it. They're selling them. And I totally get why anybody who's a performer and has reached that level of my signature, a 3-second signature that I can scribble on something is now valued at hundreds of dollars in some cases, sometimes more. I get why they sell that, but for the band experience, the high five, the picture, when you sell stuff like that and you're Waylon, I get it. You're trying to get gas in the tank to the next venue. I mean, there's a band that I absolutely love. I love his people. I consider friends. They've been to my home. Like it's not a shot at them because they are trying to get to the next level. They are trying to get to the next city. For a band like Avenged Sevenfold, they're making money. And if they should either meet people in maybe you're right, maybe it's a lottery experience where they randomly pull 20 people that hashtag the city, hashtag Avenged Sevenfold Pittsburgh or hashtag Avenged Sevenfold Cleveland, and they take all the people that did that and they pull 10 winners and a guest, and then they meet somebody and it gets out there. And then I don't know that they charge or not, or you can even meet them or not. But when you get a band at that level that's trying to charge $500, $600, $700, $800, I get that someone's going to buy that, but I can tell you that it's not going to be me.
Hey, Rick, and I'll let you go too, Larry, but it just made me think of something else. Some of that, don't you think, too, you could become disappointed? Don't you think you could have met David Lee Roth and found out what a prick he was? And
You don't know the half of that, man. I got to tell you, the most disappointing for me, and I'm actually interested to hear Larry's take on that, too, but the most disappointing for me, I was running the intern program at WDVE, which is a huge rock station in Pittsburgh. It's a legendary station around the country. And the year after I was an intern, I got hired part-time. And so I was running all the interns. And one night I had to take 10 winners and their guests backstage to meet ZZ Top. Now I'm 23, 24. I think this is the coolest thing in the world, but I've got to be cool because I have a whole bunch of college kids that I'm, evaluating for their internship. But I'm like, wow, I'm going to meet ZZ Top. So I meet these winners after the show, and we take them back to this area. Now it's KeyBank Pavilion, but it will always be Star Lake to me. But we take them back there to Star Lake, and they're standing in this room. And this guy comes in as the tour manager, and he says, "All right, everybody ready for ZZ Top?" And the 5 people or so go crazy, like, woo, they're all excited. ZZ Top walks in. They give you the fist bump because you're not allowed to actually shake their hands, which is common for a lot of bands, especially because their livelihood comes from their fingers not being broken. And that was it. They went down the row, fist bump, fist bump, fist bump. No pictures. No autographs, good night. And at that point, I just thought to myself, why do it? You just pissed off 25 people that never want to buy another ZZ Top record or never want to buy another concert ticket because they spent all day, all week, all month so pumped to meet you, and then you were complete dicks. And I thought to myself, why? Why do it? Just say no. What do you think, Larry? Who's the you got some of that?
Well, the thing I was wanting to say is a lot of these meet and greets, they don't even include the autograph. It's like exactly what you're talking about. You're not allowed to take pictures. You're paying $700 to fist bump somebody, and you don't even get an autograph or a picture, to share with your social media or whatever. It's ridiculous. I mean, for $700, you could think you would get an autograph or a picture or something. But
I can tell you for $700, I actually said this to someone who I love, who works in the music business and knows Metallica. I just said for $800, I should get to play the drums.
I thought you were going to say Lars Ulrich ought to blow me or something.
I thought that's where he was going too. But yeah.
No. I think for that price. Now I will tell you this: the production it shows. The production it shows. Well, good for you.
It was 03, wasn't it?
Even Rick's got standards.
I can tell you the production for shows is pretty amazing these days. The visuals that you get cost money, and I get why concert tickets are expensive. I have actually no problem with the expensive tickets because I see how many people are working. There are stage crews, there's local crews, there's sound and lighting people. I get why concert tickets have become so expensive. Do I think they need to be as expensive they are? No, but I get why they are expensive. But that on top of what you're already doing and already paying, how can you afford to buy a shirt? Like I gotta tell you guys, I have never bought a concert T-shirt in my life. I have 1,000 of them, but I've never bought one, and I'm not going to. And I have a whole bunch of shirts. The only reason I have them is just because it said Parkersburg, West Virginia on the back. When a band would put us as a tour stop on the back, I didn't know how often it would happen. I didn't know if it would ever happen again. So when Rock Allegiance rolled through town, or Seether or Pop Evil or whomever, if their shirt implied that they were in the Mid-Ohio Valley, whether it be Marietta or Parkersburg, they usually offered me one, and I took it, not because I ever intended to wear it, just because I wanted to have it to remember that we did something pretty special and put Parkersburg on the back of a concert T-shirt for a band that other normal circumstances would have never come to Parkersburg. So those kind of moments were special. But if you're charging some astronomical number for a meet and greet or a ticket, I think that I think you're essentially robbing yourself down the road, and especially if you are a dick at a meet and greet. There's a band who, and I won't say the name of the band just in case we ever book them, but I can tell you this: I know firsthand. There's a band right now that is very, very hot, who sent their tour manager out in sunglasses and a hat and pretended to be the lead singer of the band. And the people at the meet and greet didn't know because the lead singer just didn't want to do it.
Wow.
And to me, that is like the biggest slap in the face. If you were, you pay for this meet and greet, or you win this meet and greet, and it's like, you can't even show up. I just think that's a dick move.
That's a major dick move.
Hey, go a little bit further into what you were saying. And the reason I ask is we've talked about this a few times on the show with different people, and the fact that how the record scene has changed and how the radio scene has changed. Like when these bands, especially in the rock scene, when these bands get a number one single on rock radio, they don't make shit, right? So people have
no.
Yeah. And then also album sales. People aren't getting rich off of album sales like they were before, and which is two reasons that have driven the concert prices so high. So I wanted you to talk about that, being somebody who's actually in radio.
That's true, and that's part of the whole sell a meet and greet experience. Is you're not making that money off of album sales anymore, and a number one record doesn't really mean that you've necessarily succeeded financially. Gold records are nice, but they don't always equal dollars. And I feel like I've told this story on the air, so I could probably tell it here. And if I haven't, I'll probably hear about it if somebody in this band watches this. But I would say it was probably 5 years ago. I have a very close relationship with Matt Dorito, who in Pop Evil, the bass player, and he's an original member of the band, and we know a lot of things about one another's personal lives that we don't really wouldn't share. He's someone I feel like I could talk to about life, not just about radio and not just about rock and roll, but just life stuff. And so finally one night we had this conversation. It was very open and honest, and I said, at what point, because they've had, I guess now probably at the time maybe 5 or 6, but it's probably 7, 8, 9 now, number ones or at least top 10s, if not over 10 top 10 singles and at least 5 albums. And I said, at what point will you start making money? And this was a couple years ago. And he said, we're almost even. So we're just this close. So I think at this point, they're making a decent living for themselves. And obviously when college football pregame shows use your song, that helps. When you get exposure into places that you wouldn't normally get people to go, oh, that song's really good, and buy it for 99 cents on iTunes, which, by the way, I have no idea how that works. I don't have an iTunes account. I've never stolen music. I've never bought music for 99 cents via a digital platform just because I don't like it. I like physical copies of records. I mean, most of the time I get a copy of a new record sent to me, but there have been times, and I will be honest with you, Shaman's Harvest is a band's album I went and physically bought at FYE at the Grand Central Mall. But it is difficult that spins, as we call them spins. When you look at the number of spins a Pop Evil song gets, and you look at it nationally and you see, wow, they get the most spins and they have a number 1 record. It doesn't always translate into big dollars. I mean, I think a lot of times, especially with people in the Mid-Ohio Valley, they would look and see, oh, this band is on the radio and they're coming to our town. They must be millionaires. It couldn't actually be further from the truth. I've spent days, a couple consecutive days on different band buses with different bands, and I can tell you honestly, there's nothing about it that's glamorous. You're away from your family. You spend so much time doing nothing. You're on wheels and you're going. If you're mad at somebody in the band or you've had a disagreement, there's nowhere to run to. You sleep in a bunk that is barely big enough for a human to sleep in. Like you got to remember, when bands score records pretty high, that's great, and it's a great story, and you could always hold on to a number 1 or a gold plaque, and you can hold on to it with both hands. But that doesn't mean you've made any money. And when those bands that come to town are selling shirts, that's where they make some money. I mean, if there's 4 guys in a band, after cost, every shirt they sell, that probably puts maybe $2 or $3 in each of their pockets. So, if you sell 100 shirts one night at a show at the Sixpence, each guy in the band may profit $200 total dollars. I mean, there's not a lot of money in this until you become a Metallica, until you become bands in that higher range, a Shinedown, a Godsmack. They're all making money, and they're making good money. There's no doubt about it. But I would imagine normal people think that those guys are multi-millionaires, and that's just not the case. There's a lot of people with a lot of hands and a lot of pockets. It's almost like buying a house. That is one of the worst experiences of my life was buying my house and then selling my house when I left Parkersburg. Well, there's a title search fee. There's a this fee, a that fee, a this person. Person has to do that. And honestly, it's some of this shit's made up. I mean, there's no way it takes 86 people to fulfill a contract. I own a house. I'd like to sell it to you. You need to know that I did the title search 5 years ago when I bought it. I'm the only person that owned it, but there's always jobs created out of sticking your hands in other people's pockets, and the music business is the number 1 portrayer of such jobs.
Now, as a devil's advocate here, I completely agree with you on the meet and greets, and I don't want to beat this thing to death. This will be the last part of it. On the other side of that, you have people that are very successful business owners that become millionaires, billionaires, and it doesn't stop them from continuing to make that money. And a good example in the music business would be Gene Simmons. You know, the guy's obviously, I'm going to say he's a billionaire, I'm going to guess, but he's still making money off of the Kiss name on so many other different avenues. They're one of the biggest bands on marketing some of the dumbest things.
Well, and the reason is
people are buying it.
That's 100% it. People will buy stuff. I don't know why you need Kiss toilet paper, but someone out there's buying it. I mean, because they make it. And if you love Kiss, and I happen to love Kiss, and I'll be honest, they're not good musicians, and the songs are elementary at best, but the show is amazing. They, to me, they were clowns when I was a kid, and I actually ended up hating like friendly clowns because I thought Kiss were good clowns. So I've been warped my whole life, but I would do anything. I mean, if I thought someone would buy, Big Rick brand, feminine products, I'd slap my name on it and take your money.
Hell yeah.
And that's and that's what Gene Simmons did. I mean, I don't know anything about that world, but I tell you what, if someone would buy it, I mean, if you want to wipe your ass with Big Rick, I will print it on toilet paper. and that's why he makes money.
And we'll promote
it.
That's nothing new. That's nothing new either. Colonel Tom Parker started that with Elvis, buddy, and there was Elvis everything.
It is, and of course, one of the biggest shams in the world right now, in my opinion, is the fact that Paisley Park is open to the public. Prince was one of the most creative and private people in the history of the music business, or maybe the world. I don't even know if Prince was from this earth. I mean, he was just that much better musically, sonically, creatively than most people. And his family, the second he died, I mean, they were like slamming that elevator door shut going, let's get people in here and charge them $100 to see what Prince did. Yeah. Now, his mystery led to the opportunity for people to want in there so badly that they'll pay it. And I'm one of those people. I would love to see Paisley Park. And at some point, I have a good friend that lives in Minneapolis. I will go there and I will go see Prince's house. But he did not want that. That was the last thing he wanted. And so when you have a Prince gift shop and you can buy I survived the Paisley Park tour of 2018 t-shirt for $75 on your way out the door, it's kind of bullshit, and he didn't want that. So you get people that can slap their name on anything and people will buy it. And there's probably a dozen people in this world. I mean, just imagine when Keith Richards dies. Keith Richards is immortal. I don't know that any of us will outlive Keith Richards, and I hope we don't, because I think the world is not a good place when Keith Richards is not in it. But when Keith Richards dies, Larry, you can probably attest to this. Keith Richards' autograph right now is probably $500 to $700. The day he dies, that's going to skyrocket by $1,000 at least. I would think it would.
One of the guys. I'm sorry. Would you want to respond, Larry?
You still had a comment you were going to make back on the meet and greet.
Well, I got a couple questions. One, have you ever met Gene Simmons? Rick?
I have never met Gene Simmons. And I think somebody brought it up earlier about finding out that someone you actually want to meet is a dick.
He's a dick.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I want to put Destroyer in and enjoy it. I mean, at this point, I would rather go see Eric Sievers is doing Kings of the Nighttime World. There's a local Mid-Ohio Valley Kiss tribute band. At this point, I think they're probably every bit as good musically, if not better, than actual Kiss, whatever actual Kiss still is, because every 5 minutes there's someone different in the band, and Ace is out and whatever. But I love the songs of Kiss, and I don't want to hate them. I just recently had a terrible experience. My favorite band in the world is Social Distortion. I love that band. It is my favorite. I've seen them, I'm not going to lie, 25 times, if not more. And I've met Mike Ness one time, and he wasn't terrible, wasn't friendly, was okay. I actually took a guitar, I got it signed, and it was a very cool experience for me, and I cherish that moment. Last year, I went to see them at Stage AE. I work mornings, so I get up at 3:30. It was a weeknight show. That has to tell you how much I wanted to go see that. I waited until about 11:30, 12 o'clock. I was supposed to go backstage and meet the band. I got the poster. Like, I actually was going to have a fan experience, which I don't get to have that often. It's not, I don't mean to say that like a jerk, but I get to meet a lot of people. But my band is Social Distortion. Completely blew me off. I waited. I wasted hours of sleep and time, and I didn't get to go backstage and do the thing that I was going to do. And when you find out that the people that you really want to meet are jerks, it really affects how you listen to the music. I'm still a big fan of those songs. I love them, but I look at the band a little differently now because, my fan experience got ruined. And maybe that's right. Maybe it's wrong. I don't know. But they told me to never, ever talk to Fred Durst. A million people told me Fred Durst is the worst person ever. Don't talk to him. He's a total dick. I had one of the greatest experiences of my life with Fred Durst. Couldn't have been any cooler. They originally turned down the interview, which was fine. Turn it down in advance and just say it's never going to happen. Well, they walked into the tent at Rock on the Range, and they said, "Are you Big Rick?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, Fred Durst will be with you in 5 minutes." And I said, "Nah." They turned me down. I said, I wasn't ready for it, but I knew so much about Limp Bizkit that it wasn't hard for me to do an interview. As you can tell, I don't have a problem talking. So I just I sat down, and he showed up, and I just went with what I knew, and he just was cool about it, and we talked. I was the only person in the tent that day that did an interview, and they were headlining Rock on the Range. And at the end of the interview, he freestyled my name, the Bear, Rock on the Range, just like put together this little 20, 30-second freestyle rap at the end of the interview. And it's like one of the coolest things that I'll ever have. So it's a hit or miss. I mean, everybody has bad days. I mean, you could call me on a Monday and I'm having just the worst day ever. And I try to not be short with people, or, if I get a caller and they're just a jerk, it's like, they probably, and I don't want to handle it. I mean, everybody has bad days. So you can excuse it once in a while, but if it becomes something that you hear about all the time, and that's how Fred Durst got that, kind of moniker of don't ever interview Fred Durst. But I think in the grand scheme of things, I think you go ahead and you do it. And if you have a bad experience, you either write it off or you just you just realize that person maybe had a bad day. But yeah, as far as Gene Simmons goes, I would totally meet Gene Simmons and I would totally have a conversation with him. And if it sucked, I don't have any preconceived notions that he's a jerk. So if it ended in 5 minutes or 5 seconds and it was just like, so what? Well,
he was at least nice enough to, because I wasn't backstage. I saw them come into Charleston. They drive into the arena, and he walked about 50 yards even to come talk to us. And Peter, Paul, and Ace, they just looked at me and just walked away and didn't even come.
Which tour was that, by the way, Larry?
It was the first reunion tour when all of them were together.
1973?
No, it was like 99 or something, I think, or 2000.
They only had about 30 years worth of the End of the World tour. So,
yeah.
It was, I mean, they just, and it's still... rumor has it that they think that they could continue on without any original members, just as just as people playing those songs, because that's how Gene plans to make money in retirement if he ever does. So Eric Seifers, if you're watching, you better get your Kiss chops up. Yeah, I mean they do. They actually think that's a thing.
I was kind of disappointed with them with the whole Ace Frehley thing. I think they should have, if they, their whole entire gig or whatever is based off of their characters. You got the cat, you got the spaceman, you got the demon. I think they should have come up with a different character for Tommy Thayer. I think everything would have been cool.
They did for Vinny, and they did for
that's my point.
Eric Carr.
That's my point. I mean, it's kind of a petty thing, but people relate to that, and you don't see, Slipknot. Good example. Can you imagine somebody doing Corey Taylor? I mean,
yeah. I mean, it's a weird thing that I think Kiss did everything they could to try to not seem completely dysfunctional, and I think not coming up with a different character name was or different character face was the reason for that. But I also don't think Slipknot is in right now, at least historically, in the same caliber as Kiss. I think they could be. I think Corey Taylor is a total rock star.
Right.
I think he's rock star through and through. And I don't think anybody would, the next. Well, let me put it to you this way in terms of marginal success, and this is in no way a slam at the band. Let's think of the other bands in the world that we know that wear masks to perform. Mm-hmm. Mushroom Head was the first one that came to mind. Mushroom Head could, and we tried to. We just didn't have a room big enough to use to put Mushroom Head in the Mid-Ohio Valley. Well, there's like 800 people in that band that all wear masks, and we didn't have a stage that could hold it. Well, they are marginally successful compared to Slipknot. Well, the next band that comes out all wearing masks and playing like just psychosocial type metal, I don't know if it's going to work. I mean, it's already been done before. I think the originality of bands is going by the wayside. I like a band that comes out in a costume. I think Avatar is extremely interesting. And it's not that they're my favorite band in the world, but I think their gimmick is good. I think that the idea of being dressed essentially as circus performers and ringmasters, I think is super interesting. And when you get the next band that decides that they're going to come out and wear masks and try to emulate what's happening with Slipknot now, I don't know that it's going to go well. But the turn is the band Greta Van Fleet. Greta Van Fleet has 2 #1 records from an EP. They don't actually have one full record yet, and they have completely sold out shows all over the place. But they sound exactly like Led Zeppelin.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jay Morris, by the way, for telling me about them, because I actually got to hear them.
Yeah, I mean, some people are extremely into it. If you look at the festival lineups this year, you will find that they are towards the top. I mean, Greta Van Fleet is in big, bold letters towards the top, and you have bands that are probably more accomplished as far as record sales, touring, longevity, that are way towards the bottom compared to where they are. And, some people are at a crossroads with that. They're like, well, you know what? That sound's been done before. But they're selling records, and they're at the top of the heap as far as these shows go. I mean, I don't know if it works or not. I haven't seen it. I'm excited to see it. I'm going to go see them play Pittsburgh here, and plus they're playing the festival circuit. But I think you get a different vibe at a festival circuit than you do actually at a show that's indoors in a smaller scene. But I'm sure they're an incredible Led Zeppelin type young kid band. But here's the thing. Led Zeppelin sells records still today and hasn't played together in a long, long time. People love the sound. So if you emulate it and you're young and you're enthusiastic about it and it works, well, then you're winning. And so I think it's a band-by-band basis. The next person that tries to be Dave Grohl will fail miserably.
And then
the
you
next
have
person
Ghost.
that tries to be
Ghost.
I love Ghost. I love Ghost. I can't tell you how much I love the originality of Ghost. And
Patrick
when
Swayze.
you have a band oh God, now I just don't even want to think about it. But I love the originality of Ghost. I think that they are incredibly creative. I interviewed Papa Emeritus back 2 years ago. I saw his face. We had to pretend that he was just a nameless ghoul when we interviewed him, but we knew that it was in fact him. And we had an hour-long conversation. He enjoyed talking to me, thankfully, and I really enjoyed talking to him. And we talked about everything from What You Eat at Thanksgiving to Motley Crue records. And I thought the first time I saw them, I was like, this is not for me. And I realized that this is so interesting to shake up everything you think about. Like, it's not satanic, which I think a lot of people think. It's actually kind of a farce more than anything. I mean, the songs are good. The new single, by the way, Rats.
Oh, I love it.
I'm not taking a shot at anybody, but I don't know if your local rock and roll station is playing that song or will play that song. I don't know.
Do we have a local rock and roll station?
Oh,
this is available to you online at WCLG.com if you'd like to listen to a locally programmed West Virginia rock and roll station. There's a shameless plug that, but yeah, I don't know that they play it, but if they don't, look it up. It's an amazing video. It's rock and roll meets the devil meets the Thriller video. I mean, it's just so unique.
And the video has to go with the song. You have to watch the video.
It's great.
Yep.
Hey, right up that same alley. I just found out a couple weeks ago, and I've been trying to get Craig on this, that Steve Tucker from Morbid Angel lives in Parkersburg, supposedly. Do you know?
Is that true?
Do you know that? I wondered whether you'd ever heard that or know that. And I did see some material out there where he had been where he had mentioned CA house music, so I know he's at least been in town.
I will ask around. I bet I could probably.
We would like to get him on the show if he's actually here. Now he actually is in Morbid Angel again, and they are on tour for 5 weeks, starting like right now. But after that's over with, well, I'd love to be able to get in touch with him.
Yeah, I sent him a message, but he might be a Facebooker like you are, Rick. Maybe he doesn't like Facebook. So
a lot of people don't.
Guys, it was an incredibly unique experience when I left the Mid-Ohio Valley, because I got, and this isn't an exaggeration or to sound cool or better than the room, but I seriously got 500 messages at least. And at that point, like, I responded to every single one of them eventually. And I tried to write at least, some of it was as simple as, I can't believe you left, go bleep yourself. And some of it was, no, I'm serious. And actually, I actually caught some of that just yesterday, I still get people that are pissed that I left, as if I owed my life, if it was indentured servitude, to continue to bring concerts and rock and roll to the Mid-Ohio Valley. And I think sometimes those people are incredibly thankful for the things that happen, but don't understand that
you may have gotten some of that because of the change in the radio station too. And I wouldn't really call it active rock anymore. If being somebody who was a music programmer, I wouldn't really call the Bear active rock anymore when I turned it on now.
I heard it over the weekend. I was there overnight. I came in early Saturday, and I left early this morning. So I listened to it. I'm not sure exactly what you would call it or what they're going for. I'm not here to question, what they did. I'm not here to slam them. I had an incredibly good run there for a lot of years.
I will. Their innovation sucks now.
I just thought it was pretty well done. Active rock. As somebody who was a music programmer, now of course I was a music programmer in a lot of stuff other than active rock, but somebody as was one. I thought that you did a fairly good job of making that a pretty mainline active rock station, and making it have its own Mid-Ohio Valley flair.
Well, you played new stuff. I mean, we would have never heard Shallow Side. We'd have never heard Wayland. We'd have never heard
Pop Evil.
A lot of these groups on the radio in this time frame.
Boba Flex, Blackstone Cherry, Royal Bliss.
Yeah, I mean,
New Medicine.
Yeah, those were the times where it was the greatest job in the world. I could listen to songs
or like us, I should say.
Well, we did. We played local stuff. I mean,
yeah.
I would get slammed every once in a while by people that go, the Bear, they don't play local stuff. I'm like, call Eric Sievers right now and see if I ever helped sell a Lycus record. and I'm sure that he would tell you, the guys in We Are Funhouse would tell you that we gave a fair opportunity to bands that were around and regional bands. I mean, Waylon is from Michigan. That is in technically our region of the world. And they were playing the Fifth Street Pub for 5 or 6 people. And Marty from Bobaflex called me and said, "Hey, I need you to go over and check out this band. We've intersected with them on tour. We really like them." He's really the reason that Waylon became what the Mid-Ohio Valley knows of them. He's the one that sent me to the Fifth Street Pub on a Saturday night and said, "Hey, these guys are really good. You need to check them out." And he was right. They were really good. They were playing in a situation where nobody could see them. And then so we, Brian and I went, we liked it, and we invited them back to play on a show. I think it might have been a Bobaflex show or something, and people were like, "Oh my God, this band!" And he already loved Bobaflex, so then it became the kind of thing where we were kind of wasting talent if we put them on a show together, because we could have a show on this Saturday night at the beginning of the month with Bobaflex, and this show over here on a different Saturday night with Waylon, and the same amount of people would come out or close to it. And so it was like, well, here's more entertainment, putting something together like what a Bear Fest was, when the Bear Fest that I will always cherish the most. And I don't know what number it is in succession to the rest of them, but Bobaflex, Waylon, and Royal Bliss all played. I think maybe Otherwise was there. That's where Ryan Curry could have stepped in and helped us and reminded me, because he's really great about remembering that kind of stuff. But, all these bands that were actual friends, we all went out on stage and we sang I Was Drunk together. And it was like, we looked at 1,500 people in the crowd, and some of you guys were probably there. And Craig, I'm sure you were there.
Oh my God. Remember Jonathan Tyler and the Northern Lights? That I don't know if you remember it or not.
There is no show that I've ever loved inside the Eagles Club more than Jonathan Tyler and the Northern Lights. I could probably go to jail for the story, I will tell you right now. So we knew Cedar was coming to play and shut that building down. In fact, I'm pretty sure, if I remember the story correctly, we kind of had to get an exemption to have that show. I think it was like June 3rd for the Cedar show, because the building was technically supposed to be sold like on the 1st. And so we got some sort of permission to be able to use the building, or we slowed down the sales process or something to the state just long enough to make sure we could do that. And we knew the night of Jonathan Tyler and the Northern Lights that we were going to announce that show. And we were euphoric in some ways, sad in others, but because we knew the building was going to ultimately shut down. But,
now, you also had Royal Bliss on that show, if I'm not mistaken. You remember?
I don't remember who was on it. I actually thought it was Jonathan Tyler, Redline Chemistry, and maybe Taddy Porter.
You're right. Taddy Porter was the one I was trying to remember. Yep.
Yeah, there's another band I absolutely love. But
Redline Chemistry is that band I've been asking you about from like Kansas City or whatever that I could not remember the name of.
Yes, and they just released new music, by the way. Back
I
together.
love them.
And,
what was it again?
Yeah, that was that band I was so I was doing. I work with Brian at BPD, and so I was doing some of the security for some of those shows. Helping you guys with some of the security. And so one of my jobs was to deal with Redline Chemistry backstage. What a nice, down to earth set of great guys. I've never met such nice, conversational, normal dudes who really loved what they were doing, who really wanted to know about the venue they were playing, and who really cared about the people they were playing for. Fantastic set of guys. They were great.
You're great. Yeah, they are. They're great guys, and I'm happy for them that they have got back together and decided to make new music, which is fantastic. And but that night with Jonathan Tyler, their rider was real simple: feed us, and we need 4 bottles of Jack Daniels. And the tour manager for Jonathan Tyler, I mean, you guys remember there was like 6 or 7 people in that band, and they were phenomenal. And
oh my God, everybody was trashed though.
The tour manager came to me and Brian and said, "Here's the thing. You can't give Jonathan all 4 bottles of Jack. The for the show. And well, we had a nice green room set up back there. I walked back in there. There's a long, probably 8-foot table, two of them next to each other, and there's chairs all around it. And let's just say all the bands were sitting there at one time. Something was going this way, something was going that way. There was a bottle going this way and a bottle going that way. And I walked in there and I went, this looks like a good time. I'm going to sit my ass down and have some fun. and when we went out to announce that Seether was coming, I remember having this like incredible like feeling in my chest and knowing that it was a thing that was like really going to happen. And at the time, you know, Seether shutting that building down was like the best thing in the world I could think of. The email about doing that show, by the way, came to me I was in the hospital. I had been in the hospital for about 8 days. I had my gallbladder removed, and I had a stone stuck in one of the ducts that went to my pancreas. And so I was very, very sick, and they couldn't operate on me until it had gone down and shrunk a little bit. So I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink anything. I was attached to machines, and I was fine as long as I didn't eat, but I was angry as hell because I like to eat. So finally, on the 8th day, they performed the surgery, and I woke up after the anesthesia, and I had my laptop there in the hospital, and I looked at my emails, and I don't know what planet I'm on because I've been pumped full of anesthesia. And I swear I see in the subject line of my email, Seether in Parkersburg. And so I have my cell phone at the time, and my friend Dan was there, and I said, call Brian Murray. And he said, why? And I said, he has to come and read this email. Like, I couldn't even figure out how to forward it to him. And so I had him come to the hospital. I made Brian come to the hospital and read the email to me. And I just said, is this a thing that can really happen? Like, Pop Evil's great and Blackstone Cherry's great, but this is next level. And he said, that's what it says. So, what do you think? And I said, I think you respond back and just say yes. And I don't care what it costs. And we, if I remember correctly, I think that show was $21,000, which was so incredibly cheap because they had to stay out of 2 intersecting festivals, one of which was in Carolina and the other was Chicago. They had to be 500 miles or 400 miles from each. Well, smack dab in the middle of 400 miles between Charlotte and Chicago is Parkersburg, West Virginia. And it was something that just blended together incredibly well. And I said, you know what? Let's do it, man. Let's tear this place apart. I said, I kind of hope they burn the building down. I want that rock and roll legendary story about us and the bear and something incredible that happened here. And we have it, man. We definitely have that story. Something I'll always treasure for sure that we were able to do that. And I think that probably is the biggest, most legendary night that we ever had is Rocks Off Entertainment, between the bomb scare, the instant sellout, all that kind of stuff. Dale throwing his bass through the wall at the end and Sean ripping down the ceiling tiles. I told them right before they went on stage, I was like, you can burn it to the ground. Like, you guys do whatever you want, rip the building in half. I don't care. I just want that like indelible rock and roll opportunity for the Mid-Ohio Valley. And I said, I don't know how much longer I'll be here. I don't know how much longer this rock scene will last, because at the time we didn't have any place to put anything. And I said, just burn it to the ground. And they did. I mean, they absolutely did. That whole night was spectacular. It's something that people talk about in other places. It's something that when I see Sean Morgan, that I'm just like, remember that night? And it's like, oh man, I remember that night. It's still, you can actually probably see it on my face because I can see myself in the computer screen here. It brings a real smile to my face to think about it.
Now, where did guitar go? It's just curious.
Did
you get
Dale.
to keep it? Oh, went with Tim. Okay. Just curious.
No. It went with Dale. You know what I do have though is I have a piece of the wall. I pulled a piece of the drywall and I had the band sign it, and I have it. It's in storage. Like most of my stuff is these days. I've been quite the transient since coming back.
That's hilarious, though.
To West Virginia, but I do have a piece of the wall, and they signed it for me, and it was such a cool thing, man. I would do anything to feel that again, and what we're doing coming up on Saturday with all the locals, with Shamans Harvest and We Are Funhouse, like us getting back together for a night, and Sunset Roosters. I want to feel that excitement again. Do I ever think 1,000 people are showing up to a concert again? I don't know. I don't know that we'll ever have the opportunity to even try to put 1,000 people in the same place in the Mid-Ohio Valley. And I don't know that we even want that opportunity to do it, because it's a difficult, daunting task. But I can tell you this, Saturday, if there's 100 people, 5 people, 500 people, to get the chance to have, one more night of making some noise and having some fun with the fan base of the Bear and the fan base and friends of Rocks Off Entertainment that really helped build my career. Even if the whole thing doesn't make money, I just want the people who really care about rock and roll, that really cared about what we used to do, to come out and have a good time. And I'm going to have a good time, and Brian's going to have a good time. And I know that it ended kind of unceremoniously on a snowy night in December of 15. And, there was an absolute whiteout blizzard conditions right before that last show with Bobaflex. And I actually moved the next day. I played in the Vienna Rec League Hockey League that Saturday night. And then after that game was over, I left. I drove south and moved to North Carolina that day. I don't even think I had Christmas up here with my family. I just left. And so it did not end the way I wanted it to end. And I wanted to, if this is one and done, which as of right now, it's one and done, I wanted to have that feel that I wanted that day that I left town. And I never thought we'd get a chance to do it again. So let's do it again. And if people come, great. And if it's incredibly undeniable that people want this type of music back, then I'll be more than happy to be the guy that facilitates it. It'll never be my second full-time job again. It'll never be Brian's second full-time job again. But I think if enough people come out, you could probably goad us into doing a couple a year, and maybe down the road, if the opportunity arises and we have a space to do it, maybe a festival someday. I don't know. I would never promise it because I wouldn't want to disappoint people, but I have not closed the door on the idea.
It's funny you mentioned the second full-time job. A lot of people may not realize what it takes to be in the business of, Rocks Off Entertainment, of getting a band, and, the negotiations, the emails, the phone calls, no, we won't do it for this, you do it for that. We'll take this, we'll take that. It's a give and take. I mean, it's a lot of people don't understand what it really takes behind the scenes to bring these bands to town. And
it's every bit of a full-time job. It's every bit of a full-time job. It's so much.
I mean, that was part of the reason why I quit doing the small things that I was doing. It was just, I found myself, looking at my email at least once an hour, or at least once every 3 or 4 hours, and be on the phone with somebody. It's just it engulfed my life outside of social life, to be honest.
Don't you?
I didn't have a social life.
Don't you find there's a difference too of doing that when you're 20 and doing that when you're 40? For me, it is. Yeah.
Everything at 40 is different. Everything is 40 is different. It was back then. It was an interesting, integral part that all kind of ran together with what I did as a full-time job. Craig, you work at DuPont and then tried to do this, so you didn't have. They were two separate lives. You had one job over here and one job over there. For me, it all kind of blended into one big job. For Brian, it was a totally different job than he's used to doing. So for me, I probably had it in some ways the hardest, in some ways the easiest, because I understood who I was talking to, what I was trying to accomplish, how I was going to promote it, how I was going to get people to come to it. But on the other hand, you had Brian, who's used to doing this thing over here for his daily job, and then this thing over here that he just has he had no clue how to marry the two things together. He was just really pretty savvy at keeping everything together and keeping me together. And, one of the funniest things about this whole relationship between Brian and I was people always thought that I was the good time having smiling face of that business, and Brian was the sturdy, ever ready businessman. It actually is in reverse. Brian is much cooler and much more chill, I guess, than I am. I was the driver of that. I was you know what? They're 15 minutes late. I threw a band out of the Sixpence one night. I don't remember what band it is, and this is where Brian would definitely come in handy because I'll never forget the story. This band showed up, I don't know, maybe 2 hours late, and at that point we had set the stage and backlined everything with the bands that were the headliners. I want to say the headliner was Saliva, but I could be totally wrong. And they showed up, and they're like, well, the opening acts, their stuff's already on the stage. I mean, we're playing the show. And I said, who are you again? And they said their name. Couldn't tell you. And I said, you can get the hell out of here. I handed them $100. I was like, get out. You don't show up and tell us how to do our jobs. If you would have called us and said, hey, the band broke down, whatever, we'll work with you. We'll figure it out. Maybe end up playing second instead of third or whatever the situation was. But, and Brian was like, it'll be okay. And I'm like, nah, you can get the hell out of here. I mean, this is a business. We run a business. These people are paying $15 or $20 to see whatever. And, this band was supposed to get whatever they were supposed to get. And I paid them and told them to leave. Here you go. You're never coming back. And I sure as hell will never play your record. See ya. And Brian is not that guy at all. Brian's like, everything's fine. I'm like, everything's not fine. It's not fine. And I'm not putting up with this bullshit. Get out. And so it was really kind of a weird dynamic. Everybody thought, oh man, there's Rick, he's having a drink and go hang out. He's just, talk about mountaineer sports or whatever. And meanwhile, it's like, Brian's the guy you much rather would get.
Now that brings up
not that guy.
That brings up another good or bad memory, depending on how you want to look at it. And I guarantee you remember this one. It was at the Fishbone. It was with a band called Red. And I was in
Las Vegas,
and they had
I wasn't there.
They had a complete meltdown.
There. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Weird connection to this. Ryan Patrick from Otherwise texted me, and he was like, "I can't believe you're in my town and I'm in your town." And I said, "Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird because they played that show too. It was them and Filter." Right. Yep. And there was one other band. And and I think it was the Bears Halloween party, if I'm not mistaken. And so Ryan texts me and he's like, oh, no, it's a good crowd. People are pumped, blah, 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 blah. And so we were texting back and forth. I was sitting, I was actually watching Jada Pinkett Smith has a rock band. She was playing at the poolside at the Mandalay Bay Hotel. And that's where I was. And Ryan sent me a text after they were done playing. We As Human was the other band. Yep. And they sent me a text, and we're just laughing back and forth. And then he sent me a saddy face and said, Red just stormed off the stage. And so Brian calls me right after that, and he's like, I don't know what to do. Like they said the equipment's faulty. And I said, well, did the first two bands play fine? And he was like, yeah, like everything was fine. And Filter, of course, was the headliner, and they had sound check. There were no issues. So what the hell's going on? So I made a couple of calls, and of course, it was much later there than it was in Las Vegas. And so I started calling people to find out what happened. And I'll be honest with you, I've never, since that day, that was a Saturday night, I believe, or Friday night, I went back to the studio whenever I got back from Las Vegas. When I back to work, I pulled every Red record that we played, and still to this day, I have never played the band Red again on the air at any station I've programmed. They screwed you guys. They 100% screwed you guys over. They bring a lot of backing tracks and things like that. I'm not sure exactly what happened. As I said, I wasn't there. But whatever they did overloaded something, which no other band did, by the way. I mean, 3 out of 4 ain't bad. So somebody there did in their camp did something. They kicked a monitor off stage, and they put a hole in the wall at the Fishbone. And I won't lie to you, I pursued them every single day until I got half of my money back for that show. Several times people that work with them have reached out to me to try to patch that up, and they screwed you guys, and I would not.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't go back to it. And
Missy and I still, to this day, if a Red song comes on the radio or whatever we're listening to, it goes right on. It was absolutely uncalled for. I don't care what the hell happened on stage with them, whether it was your electric, was their electric, but us fans were there to see them, and they should have at least come off their fucking bus and come out there and maybe did an acoustic song for us, or, met with us. No, we were the reason why they were there.
I agree with you, and I agree with you so much so that, when for a guy that's not from West Virginia, I think I have probably a lot of West Virginia pride. I feel like West Virginia has always been kind of shit on by other people in other places and other states, and I was always very proud to be a voice for the state of West Virginia, and certainly rock fans in the Mid-Ohio Valley. And nobody was shitting on our fans. Nobody was shitting on our listeners. And I fought tooth and nail about that whole thing, and nobody was going to shit on my company either. Rock Stuff Entertainment was a full-time job. It was a very interesting thing that we had going on there, and I was defending both my business and my listeners, and they have since tried to correct that, and I just want nothing to do with it. And the real crappy thing about it is Michael Barnes and the Twins are from the Meadville, Pennsylvania area where I used to live. My first full-time job was in that area. So we always had things in common. We talked many times. We were really cool. Had I been there, I don't know that it would have been a different story. But I know what the story is. I know what I was told. I know what my business partner told me about that night. I know what the other bands told me about that night, because Filter went out and, from what I understand, just absolutely killed it. So there was no problems, and they created a problem, and they broke something, and I'm telling you, I got half our money back, and I made sure that I never played the record again. They actually had a record recently that went, I think, up to then maybe 14, 18, something like that. It went top 20, and I still didn't play it. And that is one of the joys of being a programmer, is you play what you think works. And if I started playing that record and they tried to get to come to Morgantown, I'm not supporting their show, so you might as well just go ahead and pass.
Well, thanks to Big Rick, I have no idea who Red is, so thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, I screwed you over, Larry. You ain't missing much. There's better things to listen to. Buy yourself a Waylon record.
Hey,
those guys rock.
Rick, are you doing any of the same stuff in Morgantown? Are you doing any promotion up there? Because I would imagine there's probably a pretty well-established promotion already going on up there, right?
There are established venues, and they do a lot of different stuff. Schmitz is up there, and there's a place called Main Stage Morgantown, both similar-sized venues. Certain things work in certain places. When they are brought to my attention, I try to place them in the correct spot. And I have got into it a little bit. My job and my life now are much different than they were when I lived in Parkersburg. So I don't have the same amount of time to dedicate to doing it. But I do, of course, have a responsibility as a programmer of a rock station to bring rock shows to town. So working with Owen and working with Tim over at Main Stage, I kind of facilitate things, but I don't do it like we did Rock Stuff Entertainment. And That's sort of why this thing is happening this Saturday. Is I got this opportunity to bring Shaman's Harvest to Morgantown. I mean, Parkersburg was never brought up. It was just there was no place to put it, and Shaman's was a band that Brian and I both loved, and we tried to bring a couple times, and it never happened. It never happened, and finally, I was like, if ever we were going to do it, I think this is the one I could get Brian to bite on. So. He initially did not take the bait, and a little later, maybe about 15 minutes later, he just wrote. He told me no on the phone. He's like, no, I'm grandpapping. I'm doing my thing. I'm good. I'm happy. And then about 15 minutes later, he sent me a text and said that Jamie and Frank and Doug will help you move stuff.
He went and asked Therese is what he did.
So
Brian Murray would not do it, but Ryan Curry,
right?
Damn straight.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's I got to tell you. I mean, he called the bluff, man. That's it. It's exactly what happened. And so he sent me a text and just said, "Hey, these guys will help you move stuff, and I'll be
Teresa.
there." And
I was thinking Teresa too.
I think Teresa has more fun, I think, than Brian ever did. She enjoys it, and her and Julie and some of those folks that have helped over the years move stuff. And I mean, it takes a lot of work. Just when you guys get there and the doors open, you see everything's up on stage and ready to go. You have no idea how much work it is to make that happen. And the people that really contributed to what we were trying to do and how to make that happen. I mean, I can't tell you, like with the Bear Fest, how much moving parts there are, and you need people to move them.
I can tell you there were a whole BPD crew involved in a lot of those shows behind the scenes.
I can't even tell you. I mean, there are times where that I have no idea how we pulled the stuff off, and if it weren't for people that just actually wanted to support that type of music, that these shows would never happen. I mean, this thing is don't pretend by any means that either one of us got rich from doing this, and certainly the people that helped us along the way. We were probably able to buy a beer for them or something like that, but there wasn't a lot of money in it for anybody, let alone some of the people that volunteered their time. And when we would do something like Bear Fest, that would be really a 24-hour process. We couldn't do that without people who actually just wanted to see this type of music come to town and succeed. And Jamie and Frank and Doug especially, I think they've moved more cabinets for Rocks Off Entertainment than they've ever moved stuff into their own houses. I mean, it's so much stuff, and it's so many things that it involves that we couldn't have done it without that crowd. And if they wouldn't have agreed to move this stuff for this night coming up on Saturday, then it wouldn't have happened. I mean, I can't physically move it all myself, and I have. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure you've seen me at the show. The show's over. I'm rolling cabinets. I'm cleaning up. I'm doing the things that need to be required from stagehands, because quite frankly, there sometimes weren't enough sober people around to do it. So, I've done it. We had Clutch at the Fishbone, and I was out there on the stage squeegeeing up the stage so the show could happen. And I had their tour manager said to me, "You're the radio guy. Why are you out there squeegeeing the stage?" I was like, "This is my ass, buddy. This is my this is my station, but it's also my business." I said, somebody has to squeegee that stage. It's me. So that's what I did. And
it was really bad weather
that
day. I remember that.
Oh, it was horrible.
It does go without saying, though. I know from my perspective that from a fan's side of it, you all have done a fantastic job when you did do it, though. I mean, you could definitely tell that, whether it was Brian or whoever was doing it, you all had a good mesh together and complement each other. And everything, even though you had your things behind the scenes, I'm sure that happened, fans breaking down or whatever, but I can tell you from a fan point of view, you all did a great job on putting on a great show. I mean, there's no other way of saying it other than that. I mean, just so.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, we did. Brian Murray is the exact right compliment to my personality. Very few times can I even think of any time that Brian and I had a conflict. of any sort. I would call him at ass o'clock in the morning, and he would be awake doing something, and I'd go, I got an idea, and by the end of the day, it was developed into something we realistically could go after and make happen. And they didn't all come to fruition, but the ones that did were basically because we had a mix of two people that knew how to work with one another. And when it came to like a day of show operation, that's all Brian. I mean, he was there well before I was. I was doing my thing on the radio, whether I was doing it live from there or in the studio, and then would make it to the show. And he had such a really good grip on how to work with people. He is much better at playing well with others than I am. He understood what needed to be done to make something happen. And then when the day of the show got here, and it was time for the doors to open, I mean, I could promote the hell out of something, but I don't think I could do what he did the day of show-wise operationally to get things in and out the door. And then when I got there, he felt probably a sense of relief in a lot of ways, because I would be the prick that got everything else done. I would throw people out of the show if they needed thrown out. I would not let a band in the door if they were going to be, rude and disrespectful to the fans. And I would chase you down if you tried to sneak in and you didn't have a ticket. I want my $15. I would chase your ass down and get your ticket money and or throw you out. And we complimented each other really well. And when it was a band's broke down, or this band isn't going to make it, or whatever happened, or this band needs 4,000 brown M&Ms in a brandy glass, I'm pretty good under pressure. My actual college degree is in crisis management. So that's probably where the one of the proudest moments of ever using my actual education was the night of the Seether show. It's like, you need to get 1,500 people out the door here in the next 2 minutes so we could sniff for bombs and then get them all back in and get that show together. And we did it. And it just comes from staying collected and even killed. So that's how we work together, and that's what made that so good. And if it ever continues on, then that's what will be its success. And it has everything to do with the fact that he just knows how to work with me and lets me, if I lose my mind, he lets it go, and it's never personal. If he's mad or I'm mad, it's not at each other. It's never personal. You just walk away, you blow off some steam, you come back and get your job done.
We haven't done very much promoting of your show on this show, but we do appreciate what you've shared. Shaman's Harvest, you want to go ahead and do what you do best, Rick?
Yeah.
Go ahead and...
Shameless plug. I got about 6% battery left on my computer, so I'll probably have to go soon anyway. But this Saturday night we are going to we're going to try to do it again. We're going to try to replicate the fun we used to have. I do know that the Adelphia holds about 350 people. If that showed up, we would be over the moon excited. I do know that there are well over 100 tickets left to the show. I know that this is also a late crowd in Parkersburg and Marietta that buys at the door, which is fine as long as you're there. The tickets are selling, though, which is good news. They are available at Sound Exchange. They're available online. You can go to the Adelphia's website and just get them off the Adelphia's website. They'll just be at the door. They'll actually hand us a list, so we'll just mark you off at the door. But this is a test. I mean, this is an absolute test. It was an expensive test, but it's a test, and if people want it, we could be talked into doing this again on a part-time, limited 5-6 a year basis. If this doesn't work out, or it's just a break-even situation, well, we'll be so glad to see everybody that shows up. We'll have a beer with you. I also want to mention that Chad and Haley and I will be together for the first time since that last Bear Fest over at the Boneyard there. I've seen Chad separately. I've seen Haley separately, but we've not the three of us who were really a core of the success of that operation. Sean Jones will be there. He was on the Bear for quite a while too. Jeremiah, I'm sure, will stop by, and he was a massive part of the success of both the Bear and always there technically and supportive wise for Rocksoft. So, if people come out and they want it and they show up in droves and just say, hey, you do one of these and we'll buy a ticket, I would say it's time to try to start to talk us into it, because right now it's kind of, there's a little bit of a fever about it. I went to Record Store Day, talked to Joe over at the Sound Exchange for a while, and I got to say that it was great to be there for that. Congratulations to Joe and the Sound Exchange. Did the best Record Store Day that they've ever had, and that has to do with them doing great planning and the Mid Ohio Valley supporting Record Store Day. But we used to have a very special thing in the Mid Ohio Valley where we would put on shows and people would buy tickets. And if people are still interested in buying tickets, we would still be interested in entertaining you every once in a while. And obviously Brian still lives there. That's his home. The Mid Ohio Valley will always feel like home to me, as it did this weekend with my other long-standing project with Remix Pro Wrestling. And 800 people showing up was just good for your heart. And to know that we built something 8 years ago that continues to grow is amazing. And if Rocksoft Entertainment also becomes that thing that we built, I think roughly 8 years ago, and it becomes a thing that can thrive again on a basis that is comfortable for Brian and I, then that would be fantastic. If it's just the last night is this Saturday night, and it was better than the last night that we really had because of that snowstorm and everything, then that's fine too. I have no expectations for any of this. If it's great, great. If it's not great, then it's not great. We've all failed at things before. I don't fear failure of it, but I do think people are going to come out, and I do think we're going to have a hell of a good time. And I think I'm excited to see Lycus play together again, and I think they're excited. So it's going to be great. Either way, win, lose, draw, whatever.
We're looking forward to it. I know that. Looking forward to seeing all the, the true radio personalities of the MOV for, rock music, and those that don't believe that personalities are what made radio. Look on some of the group pages they've made, the Coyote and AJ Fox and all the different people from the legends of the Mid Ohio Valley. And obviously, I think safe to say we could probably stick Big Rick in there. And
I hope I'm not done yet. Let me just leave it at that. I hope I'm not done yet. I don't have any. I have no idea what will ever happen with the future. I know that right now I've got about a 50,000 watt rock station in Morgantown that you can get into Ritchie County, and that's, to me, is amazing. I've had a lot of people call and talk to me about the fact that they used to listen to me on the Bear, and now they can hear me, loud and clear on CLG in Ritchie County, which is pretty neat. So I don't know what will ever happen. I can tell you for sure that I'm not moving back there. And that's not a slam at the area. I love the area. I come back all the time. It's just, my life is more geared towards what's in Morgantown for me, and the career that I'm building there, and the possibilities of expanding some of the things in my life that I've always been reaching for. But that doesn't mean that I don't care about the Mid Ohio Valley. It doesn't mean that I don't want to spend time there. I still have so many good friends there, and I can't wait to come back and see a lot of them this Saturday.
Well, speaking of expanding, I think now would be a good time to we have a small but big announcement for Robert's Report. We are moving up in the kind of like the Jeffersons, as I mentioned on our post there earlier. We're going to be neighbors with Deb Lawrence. Johnny Lawrence. We're going to be neighbors with Deb Lawrence's photography in the Dills Center in downtown Parkersburg. We're going to officially move our studio into there. She's graciously allowed us to use her space with some exchange and some marketing. And so, we're going to make it happen. It's going to be cool to move out. It's going to be cool to move out of the man cave, the actual man cave, to a new man cave, I guess. I don't know if we'll still call it a man cave or not.
You mean this beautiful green room here? This is like a luxurious studio.
Hey, we may actually have real green screen capability there. Yeah, we might be able to be anywhere we want to be.
We could be in like Vegas every week, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, and you could do the old Wayne and Garth. Now we're in Delaware. But my computer's about to die, guys, and I got to get up at 3:30. So
absolutely,
I'm probably about cashed out for the night. But I really look forward to seeing you guys this Saturday, and
so
just, keep spreading the word for me.
You are a morning man at WCLG, then?
I do mornings. I do just about everything there. I have some crazy official title that changes quite frequently. I think now we've landed on I'm the director of corporate programming for the AJG Radio Corporation. So it sounds pretty fancy, but I'm also still the guy that'll empty the trash. So I've never gotten away from that. I think that I've always been kind of a full service person. As far as my radio stations go, wherever they may be. And so I still do just about every job a person could do, but I've always loved morning radio. I fell in love with morning radio years ago. And it's a labor of love. I can tell you that. When you look at that clock and it says 3:30, it's like, why do you do this? It's so stupid. But I do it because I love it. I do it because morning radio is a lot of fun, and it's an interesting thing to do. And I can tell you this: I've had easier days than doing morning radio, but probably never anything that allowed me so much creative freedom and the opportunity to actually just pretty much say what I want, as far as that goes. So it's tough, in 6.5 hours. I can see on my phone sitting there. I see the clock, and I'm just like, oh man, I'm getting too old for this. It's turning me gray.
Well, Rick, we appreciate your time. Appreciate sharing with us some of the Rocks Off experiences. It was a great interview, I think, and maybe we'll catch up with you on the next show in the future for Rocks Off.
You never know, man. You never know what'll happen, but I'll see you guys hopefully on Saturday night. And Larry, good to see you guys. Scott, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves.
All right, thanks, Rick. Appreciate it. All right, everybody. Next week we'll be in our new home in downtown Parkersburg. We will have we actually will have a couple of the open houses there. I don't have it here next to me, but we will have the anchor. Oh, there was.
We're going to let you talk over the vocal. Rick can tell you, being a radio guy, you don't do that.
Well, I had it up and I took it off. So give me just a second here so I can make sure I properly plug them. Ashley Perry and Sabrina Stanley and Deb Lawrence. We will be in the downtown Dills Center next week. So open house. Make sure you all go on the Anchors Boutique and Deb Lawrence Photography, like their pages. And, of course, buy stuff and book pictures. Roll that beautiful bean footage.
See you next week. Peace out.
Thanks.